Hello and welcome to the DoneJS Contributors Meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. My name is Jason Lahara, coming to you from Long Beach, California. And today we're only a few of us here. It's an odd scheduling. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'm Justin from Chicago. I had a sitcom moment this morning where I was on a call with a client and my daughter busts through the door in just her underwear. My wife is slow. She's pregnant, so she couldn't chase her down in time.
I'm Matthew. I'm from Kentucky. I've been doing all kinds of weird proxy stuff. Well, not a lot, but I've been doing a little bit and realized that I was doing things the hard way when there's a much easier way. So that's usual for me.
Hi, I'm Kevin from Westmont, Illinois for the time being. Soon I'll be moving out of Westmont in a few weeks.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks.
I mean, not that Westmont is bad, but just, you know, congratulations on the new place.
Yeah, I'm moving like a mile and a half to one town over. So.
Well, now Westmont's terrible.
Nice.
Soon.
Yeah.
Once the sale goes through.
We don't want to trash all of our Westmont viewers.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, I think we have maybe a demo or two and give a quick update on our progress for the issues that we're working on for this epic. Does anyone want to start with an update or demo?
I can do my quick demo.
Okay.
So I've been working on wrapping up the last few things for Stash 4.0. So the one thing that I did last week was I removed the option scope. So I can demo and explain what the option scope is for people, because people probably don't know what it is. And we got rid of it. So there's this little known feature of Stash that you can, when you are rendering a template. So here we've got this Stash template. And here, when you're rendering it, you can actually pass a second object that is the option scope, and that can have partials and helpers and things that are specific to that template. So if I do this, you can see we're going to use this greeting value from the scope, and then this partial from our partials here from the option scope, and then this helper function exclamation from the helpers from the option scope. So this is with the latest Stash 4.0. And we can see that this is working, but there actually is no more option scope, but we are still supporting this second thing. I can kind of, if we go in here, we can use our fancy debugger, and I can show you how this works now. Right, so hopefully this will break. Yeah, cool. So now if we break in here and we take a look at what the scope looks like. The scope now has this, all scopes now have this template context, which is an object that has a bunch of stuff that's specific to your current template. So it'll have the file name if you've got a file name, and the line number, and a bunch of other stuff. But this is also where we're storing those things that you pass in that second options object. So if you look at our helpers, we've got that exclamation helper. Look at partials, we've got the name partial there. So all this stuff, you can still pass it when you render a template, but it's going to be stored in the template context instead of this separate option scope that we have to pass around everywhere. So
Kevin, should that be like a context and like just part of a real scope?
What?
That template scope, like it shouldn't be a property on a normal scope.
Yeah, so that
be like part of the parent
property is actually, it's actually just a getter that really
that's a getter. Okay, that's
points you to this the parent scope, which is the template context.
Okay, cool. Just making sure that's how it worked. Yeah. Okay.
I can show what we're talking about. So here in all giant, but in CamView scope, if you do look at this template context on the scope prototype, it does get template context, which is actually a function that walks up the scope and finds the closest parent that is a template context.
Why is it lazy?
Why not?
Could the template context change? Like what is laziness giving you?
When we initialize the scope, we don't have to call the constructor for the template context and create the that helpers and vars, and we don't have to create the simple maps that represent those things on the template context until you actually need to read them the first time.
Okay, so it's lazy in that it doesn't initialize it's the initialization of a context there that's lazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it probably doesn't make a huge difference doing it one way or the other, but using that define lazy value prevents us from having to walk up the scope every time you look at something that's on the template context. So if you do like scope.vars.foo a bunch of places in your template, we're only going to walk up the scope one time to get the template context, and then the next time we reference it, we're just going to have that as a value.
Oh, so you do bring down the template contexts. I'm confused. What do you mean? I thought it's lazy on evaluation, but not lazy on access. Meaning, like, sorry, the bit that's like the time that's saved is the initialization, not the like walking up scope. If it's both, that could cause other weirdness.
So
it's possible to have multiple. Are we allowing multiple template contexts? Because the old scopes were passed down through partials and things like that. Let's maybe talk about this after.
Yeah. It depends how you access it. If you use that getter, then it's not going to walk up the scope. If you use the get template context function, it'll walk up the scope every time.
Yeah, let's talk about. I'm not exactly sure.
Sounds good.
So I'd like to know. Yeah, cool.
That's it.
Still, no matter what you did, a big improvement.
Yeah. So the point I was making at the end, the reason that we did this is we used to have to pass around 2 scopes to all of the functions in Stash, the actual scope and then this special option scope. And this cleans up the code a lot because there's really just the one scope.
Yeah, and now the looking up of values is consistent as well in Stash 4.0. It always starts at your current context.
Yes.
Cool. That's good.
Yeah.
Consistency is nice.
So to continue on that train of what we're improving in 4.0, this past couple of weeks, I don't really have anything to demo for this, but I've been working on getting a new pre-release of the main can package out the door. That's involved a lot of just testing the pre-releases of all of the individual can stash, can component, can connect, all of those modules, and making sure that they work in a single build and across all of the browsers that we're going to support. So I don't have anything to show for that yet, but this week we'll have a pre-release with all of those of the can package, and then an updated site, which I can drop links to in the description. I think that's all I've got to share for what I've been working on. Justin or Matthew?
Cool, I got something to share. Let me get my screen. I did a debug mode into Done Auto Render last week. What this does is, well, okay, so the problem we're trying to solve here is not a lot of times. Sometimes people have issues where their application just kind of failed to load in the client when using Done Auto Render, and that's because it's usually because there's Done Auto Render uses zones to kind of know when to reattach the application into the DOM, and if for some reason those zones don't complete, then it just never happens. So what we added is in development mode, added the can zone debug module, which is it's a zone plugin to help with debugging. So this wasn't included in Done Auto Render before, but now it's included in development mode. And what that will do is after, if the zone doesn't complete within 5 seconds by default, you can configure it like this. It will just dump a bunch of stack traces of different places in your application to help you kind of track down like what's actually causing the zone not to complete. So that's actually very useful in and of itself. But it also added a second mode that you can enable with this auto render debug break flag in your still script tag. And what that will do is actually set a breakpoint for you. So that way you can kind of look back in your call stack. In this example, we have this function do work, which it just calls set timeout on itself recursively every 200 milliseconds. And by doing that, that means this function just keeps going forever. And that's not what you want to happen inside of the zone. So yeah, this gives you the ability to kind of see what's happening back in the stack, and then you can take the appropriate action. In this case, maybe you wrap this in a zone ignore, which prevents that code from being tracked within the zone. I also shot a video about this, which I posted to Gitter and Twitter and stuff. I probably should link to it in here. I'll find that and put that in the forums as well. But the video goes through a typical scenario with using Socket.io, which it does this kind of thing internally, and so it kind of goes through, using this tool to find the problem and then a couple different solutions for that. So yeah, I'll post that video in the forums. So this is released as Done Auto Render 1.5. So that's out now. Now I'm currently looking into tree shaking, just kind of figure out how to do it, what's required, and making some notes there. Then we can possibly, I don't think we're going to work on it right now, but maybe in the near term future we might circle back to that. That is all for me. Oh.
Sweet. Thanks, Matthew. Justin, do you have anything you want to share?
Yes, I got a version of ToDoneVC working with the new can observe stuff. So mine's two parts. One is going to be going through this, and then it's just talking about what we could do with this, and for 4.0 if we want to actually do it. So let's just show the highlights again real quick. So 4.0, or this there'll be a can observe, and it will have an object and array constructor functions that you can extend to create observable maps and array-like types. I could actually make it array types, real array types, in browsers that support class, but if the browsers don't, then you're going to have potentially weird behavior where something is literally an array in one browser and then not an array in others. So to avoid that, this is still making array likes right now. But anyways, it uses classes.
Does anything? This depends on proxy, though, right? Yes, I don't think there's any browsers.
That's a really good point. That might not support array. That's true. So I could make it go array. It doesn't really matter. If I'm not making an array, certain other parts of CanJS work better. By making it list-like, but not an actual array, then it doesn't get treated. Right now, we have a problem with it gets treated as a it would get treated, if I made this a legitimate array, as a built-in type, or it is not a built-in type. So we'd have to fix some parts of CanReflect to make that happen. Anyways, it's this looks kind of like your define map, except that you're really only allowed getters, setters, and methods, and then all initialization has to happen in your constructor of property defaults, things like that. The other thing that happens here, so this is the application view model. A few interesting things I have to do. One is because this application view model is not connected, or it is connected to CanRoute, but it is loading a to-dos list property. It's managing a to-do to-dos list property. I have to make that non-enumerable, so can route doesn't put that in the hash. So I can do that like this. And the other thing is we're going to start having this connected callback property that any view model can implement. And this is essentially a conventional method that things can implement that will get called when that element is inserted into the DOM. So what the method is called when it's inserted, and it returns a function that components can call that will tear down any binding. So this can kind of like this sets up any bindings that you might need within the component. So typically this is kind of where, like, if you were using something streaming that uses streams would kind of derive and their properties here and then make sure that they can get torn down. CanJS has always had this listen to, but it would probably become more prominent with something like this. Here what I'm setting up is I want a to-do list property on my view model. I have a to-dos promise that changes when the filter property changes, but I want to get the to-do list property from it. Well, I can listen to when to-dos promise changes. Whenever it changes, wait till the promise resolves and set to-do list. And then I have to do that in the beginning as well. Stop listening, anything that you use listen to. So listen to really should be treated almost as like a private method. But listen to essentially records, it allows you to listen to other things, and it kind of records all bindings made with listen to, and then a stop listening call will tear all of those down. So I'm essentially doing that, right? Providing a complete teardown for everything that this view model listens to. So that's really it. So doing this, I wasn't a huge fan because it's weird to have like two different ways of extending things, right? You have like component you extend, and then you have this class. And really, I feel that components are just kind of like syntactic, I don't know. They're just like, they're little like mix-ins or something. They don't really do much or shouldn't be doing much. It's really most of the logic in the view model, and this is just kind of assembling things around the view model. So one idea I had for 4.0, because it's nice to still have a cohesive framework that's kind of minimal that people would need to know, is I did another proposal, which is a can tag. Essentially, the view models all stay the same, and we just have a can tag that is essentially going to be calling can component underneath the hood. But there's some differences. The first most important thing is that it assumes can object, and it's going to assume stash. So can component, we don't want to make it depend on any one observable or any one view, because we want that flexible. But this would depend on can stash and on can object, which you could pass, an individual object. It would kind of set it up to be observable. So essentially that would be it. This is what, and it would also have auto-mounted, the components that were created here would be auto-mounted. So kind of like to bootstrap the app, I create my application view model, I create an instance of it, I can set it up with routing, and then I can just pass to do MVC. This is kind of like, it's very much like can React View or React View model. But this is the idea. So people really wouldn't need to know about can component so much anymore. They would just need to know about this can tag thing. Can component would move into the structure.
Why would it depend on can observe?
Actually, probably doesn't need to. I thought maybe if you just pass an undecorated object here, it would kind of convert that to an observable. Because if it wasn't, like, we can kind of detect if something's observable, and if you pass something that wasn't observable, we probably want to wrap it with a proxy and then have the component use that proxy. So that was why.
Yeah, but if you just passed a plain object, it's not like you could modify that object.
The view bindings, the stash bindings could. And then as you pass, if that gets passed down to child components, it could. Okay. Yeah, no one can directly modify that object, but I don't know. That's what I was thinking. It would depend on can't observe, because it's just like, okay, fine, we'll take it from here. As long as as long as you're only modifying it like in the box, then it's fine. Like any methods, we could still make the methods go through the can route and it would change it, or through the observable. So it would, it's not perfect, but it would take up, I think, a lot of cases.
So this can tag proposal solves the problem with two different ways of extending, right? Yeah. But there's still the other problems are still there, right? You still have to define non-enumerable properties that you don't want in the route, right? And you still have the same like listens to stuff, grossness stuff in the connected callback. All that stuff's still there, right?
That we can build things around.
Yeah.
We can build, like we talked about previously. It's relatively easy to build a can control kind of thing. That, I mean, to me, it's you gotta have some kind of you gotta be binding like this. But I mean, at least like if we're kind of building this to kind of, show Vue what we can do, at least it's pretty similar with Vue. They have it, their watches, and it's a little bit more declarative than this, but we can make something that your connected callback is essentially inside here is, I don't know. To me, it's not a perfect. It's
right.
Is it better, and is this like worth the cost of like a few days?
So the other thing that I thought is like it would be possible to handle the two different type of extends problem by adding an extend method to these observe.object and observe.array.
There is already. I did create that. Now, but then we're not using classes anymore. And then why not just use can define?
Yeah.
Right. So now the other thing is we can start adding decorators and things that add these kind of special behaviors. And those can be functions that, like, if we wanted an async getter, it's very possible to like have an async method that, like, after your after your app VM is created, right? If you have decorators, then you can just do async, right? But if you don't have decorators, then we can make like an async app VM, and then you kind of provide it your maybe your property and your I wonder how decorators pull up the name. They probably just have to overwrite the function. Do they know its name? That's kind of one tricky part, is we really need to know the name of that function. I have to look into that. Maybe it's on the function, is maybe they can pull it from function.name. Possibly. I don't know. I have to think about it, right? Because, but anyways, that's what we would figure out, is like we could start adding these things, and you could do it this way. Otherwise, in your definition of app VM, you would just have async. You would have your prop with your resolve, and they would take this and essentially convert it to basically set up the internal observation. So,
Well,
anyways,
I
yeah.
think if it takes just a couple of days, I think it's worth it.
It's worth it. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a couple of days to implement can tag, right? And then
Yeah.
what would the plan be for updating guides and stuff? Not or update all of them at some point.
Eventually, yeah. Mostly it'd be the. Fortunately, none of the like the recipes, or maybe one or two of them, even use components.
Right.
Most of them are not, right? So, which is fine, because then, well, I might change it to be mounted the way that this does, right? Instead of having like, just start putting templates in here. But the main guides would have to be changed. The real thing is like, do we change how far does this percolate up? Does it percolate to DoneJS? Because then we're talking a lot more time. Right? We don't have a component generator anymore. We have like this tag generator.
Yeah, that makes me wonder, like, how does this play with can element and us wanting to show can element?
Well, can element replaces this.
This is like to hold us over until can element does everything we need.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
Just like in terms of options, right? I see like one option one, like low cost, use can component and can define. So, right? Like, two, this is, I don't know. This is all right. It's not the worst, but it's like also not, it's like let's say that's a C, right? Like use, but the cost is like 0.
You have to undo some tests.
Huh?
You have to
yeah, but I have to do that no matter what.
Okay.
Even for this one, I would have to do that.
Gotcha.
Use like make a can tag, right? Maybe that's a B, right? And then the cost is like, like a day or two to implement and document, 2 days, and then possibly the percolation up to can component, or that's like a week for DoneJS at least. And then probably just like a whole bunch of other things, right? If we were going to start like the videos and things like that, I might be able to, right? And then there's 3, use can element, wait for can element, and then that's like an A. That's like, maybe that's like a that's almost like a few weeks to maybe get right, get perfect. And then everything else we still have to do. So.
I don't think you should like update DoneJS unless I would wait to see, if we get can element out, that's when I would want to update DoneJS. I just don't think it's worth the cost there.
Yeah, I personally don't feel like the advantages of the can tag setup are so much so that we would want to move can component to infrastructure and update everything to use can tag. It seems really useful for our guides and how we intro people to CanJS. But I can't imagine, I don't know. I can't imagine like starting to use it as much in like switching from can component or anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So are we voting, or what's the?
Yeah, let's vote on it. All right. Put your money on your number.
What?
Like, put your name on your number. Money where your mouth is, but you have virtual.
So wait.
What number?
Okay.
1,
Number.
2, or 3?
I vote for 1.
Same.
Wait, I don't vote for any of these.
You vote for B without the DoneJS part, or
Yeah.
two without DoneJS.
Okay.
Yeah, I would also support 2 without it percolating to everything. Like, have it be used in the guides or recipes, but I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem worth changing the way that we teach how to build custom elements.
But to me, it makes no sense to show can tag, but then not, and can component at some point.
Yeah, that's my thought. Is we should
not show can component at all. Can component moves to infrastructure. I think it would be really weird. That defeats the whole purpose. Is we want to reduce what people need to know to be effective.
All right, then I'll vote for 1.
All right.
Justin, you get a vote. What was your vote? Just to put you on the record.
Well, it's like if you fold in poker, you don't have to let people know your cards, right? I don't know. The hard part I have is that like can element is so amorphous right now that I feel really wary of a 4.0 that is mostly the same as 3.0, like without like actually addressing some of the, you know.
So if this is the way to actually get can,
but that's fine.
This is the way to get can observe in to where it's like it's a cool thing, and we want to show. Like I guess I like 2 because that gets can. It's not just can tag getting in; it's can observe getting in as well.
Yeah.
That's the argument I would
but
make.
I think it's, we can always go 5.0 shortly if we have to. It's in, and we can tell people like, hey, if you're out on client work or you're doing stuff, start doing it with the class, right? You're not going to use can tag. You'll still use a normal component, but that's fine, right? It's not that much different for like at least the people who know what they're doing with it. And start building decorators and tooling around can observe, and I guess we can see what happens.
I would also argue even just by itself, even if you were using the find map or whatever with this, like just the fact that it takes events away, so kind of like discourage. It tells you to only use these 3 things. You have a tag name, a template, and a view model.
Yeah,
just that little bit I think is nice.
Yeah, I like that. Right? It's just it's reducing. Yeah, I like that, but that's fine. Let's do 0, and then let's just hustle up on can element.
Yeah, we can always add can tag as an ecosystem in 4.0, and then if we do all the design work for can element and realize it's going to take longer than we thought, we can always revisit this and, like you said, go 5.0 quicker if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or doesn't he have to? Yeah. Alrighty.
Or yeah, it might not even be a 5.0.
Yeah, it might not, because everything's there. Okay. Let's do it. I'll make those changes. Let's get 4.0 out then. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if there's anything else.
I don't think there is. All right. Thanks for everyone who watched the live stream or is watching on YouTube afterwards. We will be back on our regular schedule, not this Friday, but next Friday with a contributors meeting. See y'all then.